Is this a fad, crowdsourcing, or is this for the long term?
You know, I think of it as, I look at blogs, and you think about blogs 7 or 8 years ago, and everyone said, you know, you can't really do that, it's very disruptive, and a lot of PR agencies were dead set against it. And today, you know, blogs are a normal part of the marketing mix, and it's probably the best thing that ever happened to the PR industry. And I think the same will happen with user-generated content. And there's so many forms that it can come in, but I think as social media grows and technology enables it, it's going to become a normal part of marketing.
Great. So, Jerry, here's one for you as well as for Will. Should a marketer use crowdsourced creative differently from agency-produced creative?
I don't think so. I think as long as it goes through all the right checks and balances and ticks all the right boxes, then absolutely it should form part of it. Because I think, hopefully from the examples that I shared with you, it becomes an integral part, particularly if you look at crowdsourcing in its broadest definition, which is user-generated content or social media. And I think consumers now, we've reached a kind of tipping point where it's almost impossible not to involve consumers in your marketing campaigns. And you could argue that consumers have always been involved. It's just that the volume and breadth of their voice in the process has not really been heard as much as it has.
Will, do you see it used differently?
Yeah, I would say we had some early learnings on this. When work that's meant for broadcast has to be produced very differently, different models, you know, different production values. And we did some work early on, and the people came back and said, boy, those people are not ready for TV. You can't put people like that on TV. They're fine for online. So, you know, there's a real distinction there. And I think consumers also know when something is, you know, user-generated and something is professionally produced. And I think there's a place for both.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts about whether it should be measured differently from professionally produced or professionally created?
Well, I think they both need to be measured. I'm not sure that they need to be measured differently. I think that they both have to stand up to ROI scrutiny.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. I'd say that the same business and consumer outcomes that we're looking for would be the case, irrespective of whether they're crowdsourced or whether they're produced professionally.
So we have so many different emerging marketing solutions. What do you think is the most overhyped one right now?
Given what's happening in the UK at the moment with super injunctions, I don't want to say Twitter, but you get the feeling as a marketeer, especially over the last 4 or 5 years or so, that there's always a new piece of technology or a new application.
I think it's more than a feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a reality.
And I feel that on an ongoing basis, you have to kind of take a reality check. And you know, at the end of the day, we're consumer-facing organisations, but we're very commercial organisations. And I think that we have to continually go back to what is it going to do for our business. And the only way to really bridge that gap is to understand what consumers are doing differently as a result of that. If they're becoming more involved and more engaged with your businesses, then yes, it's absolutely got to be a good thing.
I mean, one thing I would say that we've found is that there's been the Facebook brand page phenomena, where every brand wanted to have this brand page, and they rushed out and
everybody wants to be liked.
Everyone wants to be liked, and then the goal was to have 1 million likes, 1 million fans, and so people rushed to do that. And now I think we're seeing we have all these brands with 1 million people, and okay, now what do you do? And so I think maybe that's overhyped, or maybe it's just, you know, something that's still in development.
Do you think there's something underappreciated on the emerging front?
Underappreciated. Yeah, I think that the power that social media in general has is underappreciated and still yet to be leveraged. And part of it is it's hard to scale social media, and we all know that's one of the big challenges. It's easy to scale television, and that's why it's so successful. We still haven't really figured out how to scale it. And I've heard so many brand speakers and agency speakers talk about the need to have a staff and a control center and somebody looking after all this. But I do think these things can be automated, and that is coming. You know, we're starting to see these processes coming.
I mean, I don't think we're underappreciating anything. I just think we're slowly realizing that structurally we're not built to deal with the challenges of the modern world.
The organizational structure?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the way that we interact as marketers with the legal teams, That setup, that feedback process, which takes weeks and months, is not designed to cater for the modern marketing landscape.
We
where
hear that
consumers-
a lot
Absolutely.
from chief marketing officers, that the
Absolutely.
organization that they built over the years does not serve what the opportunities are today.
Absolutely.
Let's go forward a little bit. It's 2021. And how has what you do and how you do it changed from 2011? So 10 years out, what does it look like?
Yeah, I think it will look like people get involved with producing brand messages or talking about the products they like on an ongoing, regular basis. And the idea of a campaign, which we talked about this morning, will go away, that you're building these relationships and it will just be a multiplier effect.
Well, hopefully I'll still be in my job.
There you go.
In 10 years, and assuming that I am in my job in 10 years' time. I think the rigid structure of the relationships between clients and agencies and vendors will have to become much more organic and much more fluid. I think that consumers will have a much more higher profile, louder voice within our organizations, where currently they don't at the moment. And I think that listening platforms that we're putting in place at the moment is just the beginning of that. And on a very technical level, I think that even simple things like media plans won't look like media plans in 10 years' time. The old-fashioned kind of schematic with months across the top and media vehicles down the side may be replaced by something that looks a bit more like a spider chart with flows of information, flows of consumer engagement, all of which will be measured in terms of consumer behavior. What are these people actually doing as a result of what are we doing to them?
Interesting visual. So we asked at the beginning of our session about who would be the most influential, but given what you've seen here today, from a marketer's standpoint, from agency and innovator standpoint, let's ask a variation on the theme of that question. And the question is, where will change and innovation come from? Is it clients, agencies, media owners, or are you still going to say consumers? So looking out a few years, where is the change and innovation in our business going to come from?
Where's the music?
Okay, so I think a little less on the consumer side.
A little more media.
Yeah, a little more media. So there's a lot of hope out here. Thank you so much, Will. Jerry, wonderful session. Appreciated your being here. And to move things right along, I'm going to introduce the one and only, and the absolutely proverbial needs no introduction, Michael Casson, who is the chairman and CEO of our company, MediaLink.